Welcome to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada. It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the many layers of healing and growth within our recovery community. I'm your host, Peg McDermott, along with my co-host, the lovely
Heather Hageman.
Yay, Heather. And together, Heather and I share conversations that honor the complete recovery experience. And today's topic that we would love to share with you is career transitions and growth in your careers, our careers, all careers post-recovery. We're exploring navigating career changes and opportunities and the things that we run up against in our work lives as it relates to our recovery. Kind of a long-winded intro, but hopefully you got the gist of it. So you want to kick us off, Miss Heather?
Well, I was thinking about one of the things that happens in my own self and people that I have mentored and worked with is that now they're sober. Now I'm sober and I'm in this job and it's like, how the heck am I in this job? No wonder I drink.
Yeah, exactly.
You start to regain control over your time and your energy and your cognitive resources, right? When we start to get sober. So then you start to realize some of the vital assets or talents of yourself, you've just let them fall aside and you've just been kind of surviving life with these jobs that there's not much to it or whatever it is. It's not the right fit and has never been the right fit, but you just stayed there because you didn't know what else to do. So I think we start to get more mental clarity and focus. And so with that, we start to gain confidence and we start to think, hey, someday is today. Because I think I lived it that someday I'm going to have this job or someday I'm going to get this degree or someday I'm going to whatever. And now we start to realize that someday is today.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I do know more than one person that wakes up being sober and they're a bartender or they're a cocktail waitress and they want to try to figure out how to make it work. And I've never seen it. Maybe there's got to be an anomaly, I'm sure, where the person's sober and they make drinks for people.
Yeah. That can be tricky for sure.
Yeah.
I think that when I got sober, I was transitioning from what had been a 12-year career in television to more ad agency work. So I was transitioning into more of a ad agency environment. And television and the ad agency business, there was a lot of drinking in the days that I was there. And I participated heartily in those things. And I found my temperament to be very touch and go, like very moody, temperamental, reactive, took things personally. This was all before I got sober. And I left the 12-year television job to go into an ad agency background, which is just as worse. It's just you're learning more of the advertising business, but it's still pretty dysfunctional. At least it was for me. And as I got sober and I was in this sort of new working environment, it was navigating two very big changes in my life at the same time, trying to navigate not drinking one day at a time and working for a new agency owner who was a heavy drinker and didn't understand why I wasn't drinking. And I said to him, I can't. I'm allergic to alcohol. I cannot drink. And that was pretty much all I said. At that point, I had been there about a year and decided I had a year, maybe 18 months of sobriety, a year and a half, maybe. And I moved from New York to the DC area. And I didn't have a job. And I knew two people. but I knew it was time to leave so that I could continue to grow. And I would not have been able to make that transition without being sober and having a recovery community and having a recovery program that helped to support me, because I didn't feel alone. And I always felt alone at work. I always felt like I didn't belong, or I couldn't quite manage people when I was promoted, and I was difficult. I needed to do a living amends in my work life to offset, I believe, the harms I did when I was working and drinking, because I could be at times abusive, I think. I would yell and I would be like, it was just silly. And it wasn't the woman that I wanted to be. And it just fed my self loathing. So it didn't matter that I had this like hot little TV career that went into the office every day all dressed up and I managed people. It didn't matter. And none of that mattered because I was drinking even more. I was drinking a lot more heavily because each time I felt like I was a success, I felt even emptier and I would drink more to fill that emptiness up. So I was realizing, wait a minute, I thought this work thing was going to make me feel whole and make me feel worthy. And see, I do belong now. I'm successful and I'm making money and I'm blah, blah, blah. And it might have looked that way on the outside, but I was imploding. And I'm really glad I left that because I don't know that I would have been able to get sober had I stayed. And so I left, went into, I think, an equally dysfunctional career in ad agency work. But I was sober and I was able to continue building a community in New York. And then I decided it's time to move. I need to meet some new people. And my higher power was urging me to move on to this area, the DC area. And I'm glad I did. I always liked it here, the diversity. And there were a lot of opportunities that were not available to me in New York. And that helped me to gain, and being sober and building that inner strength helped me to start my business. I started a business when I moved here, which was pretty successful. And at the same time we had to close because of 911 at the time. And that was another change that I had to really navigate this business, what I thought was a business failure, when in fact these were just situations, and the situation with what was going on in our area at the time, everything just stopped. And it was time to move to something else. And so I was always taught in my generation, that baby boomer generation, I'm a late bloomer. I'm like kind of on the cusp of boomer and X. And I was always taught you go to work and you stay there for 25,000 years and you pension and you blah, blah, blah. And I thought that's just not something I was capable of doing with my temperament at the time. And then when I got sober, I just was so eager to learn new things. And that made it more of an adventure rather than these scary changes.
As you're talking, I sometimes think I need to send a note to some of these companies that I worked for, an amends, to say, so sorry that I missed deadlines and I didn't show up and I was hungover and all the different things I did. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm thinking how my last 9-to-5 job, I was an executive secretary, and the guy that was my boss, he really wanted me to I guess he saw in me what I couldn't see in myself, because he said, "You have so much talent. You were so smart." He said, "You just why don't you get your master's here in the company?" And so he did. So I was able to get my master's and I don't know how he pulled it off, but I was able to get my master's in psychology when I was working for this defense contractor. He said, "You need to use psychology to help all of us." So he signed off on all that. I had this idea that maybe I could be a therapist, but as I was doing, I got a 4.0 in that master's degree. I was still drinking, and I had this idea that I could be a therapist. But back in the deep inside of me, though, there was a part of me that was like, "Heck no, man! You will not be able to help anybody because look at what you're doing. You can't stop drinking when you drink." I knew something was wrong with me. I didn't know what it was, and so yeah, I ended up I got married on that job, and then I had my first child, and that's when I decided actually I was in therapy now, and my therapist said, "You have been doing nothing but trying to be A++, perfectionistic, and failing because you're drinking. Why don't you take the time off now and really get to know yourself and really make a decision? What do you want to do next?" And I'm grateful that my husband could support that and allow me to be goalless. And that was my goal, to be goalless. Because I always
Mm.
had goals, Peg. I was out of control with these goals that I
Mhm.
never made. So that I always felt bad about myself, right? And so as I'm sober and trying to figure out what to do, I just put it out there in the universe. Like if something comes to me, if something happens, an offering, I'll go for it. And it did eventually when it was the right time, because I had 2 kids now and I wanted to stay home with my kids. And I did all kinds of different jobs though, like coaching baseball, coaching softball. I did things like that, PTA. So I had my little volunteer jobs, and they were jobs I was doing something. But I was working out at Curves, and Curves is if you know about Curves, you
Mhm.
probably remember it, but it was that circuit training that you did. And I really hated the fact that when I went in there, the bulletin boards were always empty. There was nothing on these bulletin boards, and it just really bugged me because it would be such a great place to put stuff or decorate stuff on the bulletin boards. So I asked them, could I just decorate their bulletin boards? I said, I'd do it for free. I just want to put flowers on it. I'll put nice sayings for the women. And anyway, that led to me doing the bulletin board for them and them going, "We want you to work here." And I was like, "Well, I really can't, but maybe I could do a couple hours." So I worked like 3 hours a day. And that's how I started back in I call it my sober job. And what was so cool is all these people thought I was so wise. And the owner was like, gosh, you got it together and you're so good with people." So then she had me manage curves, and then she had another curves, manage both the curves. And so with not even like just showing up, being sober, doing the next right thing, going to meetings, listening, trying to become the best me, doing all the self-study, and all of a sudden now the world is recognizing me in that way. And now I have this job. And so from there, I found the yoga world because I was doing yoga, and the yoga owner said, "Why don't you take my training?" And I was like, "Okay, I don't want to teach yoga, but I'll take the training." And then the woman who owned the curse said, "Why don't you teach yoga here on Sunday afternoons?" And then everything just, and I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that I found my life's work when I took some time off, and I'm lucky for that, and really did just put it out there, just showed up, and people saw my light. And
Mhm.
that's how it began. And then the offers began. And now I'm the director of trauma and recovery at a yoga studio. I have my own private practice. I mean, all these things evolved slowly over time. And that happened because every day I was taking care of myself. And every day I was getting back my mind that I had lost. And now my brain is working, concentration, I'm more productive, right? I can
Mhm.
make better decisions. I have better problem solving skills because I'm pausing. I mean, there's so many great things that we have to really be say thank you to sobriety for, right?
Sure.
Our
Mhm.
energy levels increased, our motivation, and then something started to happen. I started to have better self esteem. I started to have more confidence.
Mm.
And what I didn't realize is talking in front of groups of people when I go to meetings, that gift of sharing has been a wonderful talent, I guess, or cultivated this ability to be able to speak in front of people, so that I now speak in front of, I do trainings, I speak in front of students at George Mason. I'm all over the place speaking about what I love. And for me, it's the combination of yoga and recovery. I love that the two go together, in my
Mhm.
opinion. But
There's a
you
lot.
never know what's going to happen, and we
Right,
don't give up. We don't give up.
right, right. Don't give up. And the way I think about work is a ministry, really. And I had to get healthier so that I could bring more consistent service to my work and more of a consistent temperament and more of a what's the word I'm looking for? More of an attitude of service and giving versus taking. And there's nothing wrong with having career goals. It's important to have that structure. It's important to have those guardrails, right? And at the same time, I found that if I came in with an attitude of service and what can I bring, what can I offer, the whole energy changes, especially with a staff or with clients and customers. People can sense if you're trying to sell them something. They just can. It's a spidey sense, I think. And people can sense when you're really trying to help them. And giving up alcohol, surrendering to the fact that I could not drink safely, and being healed from the inside and my thinking really has helped me to be the kind of professional today that I believe my higher power wants me to be. Because whether I'm in a meeting or whether I'm meeting with a client or whether I'm at a business function, there are still human beings there that all carry some kind of a burden. And I want to be able to go and be of service. Am I spouting sobriety to these folks? No. Half of them I go up to, it's a business function, they have a drink in their hand. So, but they're normal, they're normies. But you say they can sense a conversation versus a pitch. And because that's what we want. We just want to connect with one another. And I wasn't able to do that with the wall that was around me. And that really affected my career and it affected my trajectory. If I had stayed in the television business, I don't know that I certainly don't think I would have been able to stay sober. I'm not even sure if I would have gotten sober. I knew, God knew, you need to get out of this environment. You've been in long enough. Let's move on. And so I had to, okay, I'm in this new environment and I'm in a new lifestyle, really. What kind do I disclose to the people that I work with that I am sober? Do I disclose who to tell and when to say it and why? And how do I protect my recovery time while meeting work demands? Because there were meetings and trips and business trips that had to be taken. And I realized that I didn't have to disclose that I am sober. It wasn't something that I felt the need to do. Now, if someone came up to me and said, I noticed that you don't drink, Peg. I've been struggling a little bit and wondering if I could talk to you about it. And that did happen several times, but I wasn't, it was attraction. And it was attraction through my behavior and my willingness to be of service. And also being willing to and able to set boundaries at work, to say folks are going to a happy hour or folks were whatever, and I wasn't able to go, I would say I got to work late or I've got another thing and I usually did have another thing, but I would not, and I would go out of my way to avoid happy hours and drinking dinners. That was just not something that I was able to do in my early sobriety. And I wouldn't put myself in that position. And like you said in the beginning, there are folks, and there's nothing wrong with bartending. at all. I met some wonderful bartenders, but the fact that they it's a honest profession, but those of us that were around alcohol and were not able to drink safely or responsibly, I don't think I would be able to be pouring drinks for people. That's not to say others couldn't and not be affected by it. I just think that we really have to pick and choose our environments. And what feels safe? If it no longer feels safe, then it's time to make a change. And if you're not willing to make a change, the universe will nudge you out the door. It just works out that where we are much more in touch with our higher purpose. And sometimes that means leaving. But while we're in the job and navigating workplace triggers, and if it's a heavy drinking culture, we have to decide, is this a place I want to stay? Is this healthy for me? Can I contribute? Can I learn? Is it going to affect my sobriety? You know what? That's the number one goal. My job is to stay sober. That's my number one job.
And not just sober, but emotionally sober.
Oh, yeah. So,
And to be right. But just, I want to pop that out because I think sometimes people think it's just, oh, stop drinking and we're all good. No, we got to protect our emotional sobriety. That is probably the most important things. And I think one of the things I really am grateful for from what I've learned in this journey is that when I am in situations in the workplace, and a person is acting out or they're having issues or whatever, I can look at that person. Old me would be like, what's wrong with that person? And then I would say, I take it personal. I would take it personal. This is about me, something I've done. And now it's like, that person is suffering. This isn't about me. And how can I help this person be able to communicate in a more effective way? And so I downregulate my presence and talk softly and slowly and try to bring that down. Like, I have more tools and I don't feel afraid. Like, I will immediately feel afraid if somebody yells, right? I get that moment, but then then I'm able to like not run and put my head in the sand like I would have been a little kid. No, I am an adult and I can use my voice. And there's just so many cool things that start to happen when we put the plug in the jug, so to speak, and it can be all other frequencies of addiction. When we stop doing that, we really need to to just, the gratitude I have, I'm just gonna bring that up, for all the healing that happens that I could never have even imagined. Just that ability to be able to focus and give my attention and to listen without having to think I have to say something, that just so much has changed. And so I tell people, try not to make too many changes the first year of sobriety, but people, they will do what they need to do. And I have one person that just was like, no, I can't do it. And I'm going to change. And it's great. When you're working with another person, you talk it all through, you figure it out, and you make that change. But it's great when we can start to not be renegades or rebels doing these things on our own, but that we now have people behind us that we run things by. I think that's another thing that's really important, because anything that happens now at work, I run it by somebody else. Like, I try to run things in my life around another wise person. Not to say that I'm not going to have it right, but it's just good to have that validation I'm on the right track.
Right.
And I think that's important. That's one of the important things that I've gotten from this sobriety journey, is the relationships that I can go to and say, hey, this happened. I'm not sure what this person meant by this. Can I run this by you? And then getting another pair of eyes on it. That's kind of what I do now. If I'm confused, I take a pause and I run it by people.
And that's a good point. If we have a work trip or a convention or some sort of work event that we need to go to, that we know there'll be drinking, have a plan. I would have a plan ahead of time to find meetings in that area ahead of time, so that I could go like after the day's work or maybe the morning before, and have numbers that I could call and share with my community that I was going to this event. And I used to go to these events, and there can be a lot of alcohol, and I'm just putting it out there, and I want to call people and have a your number of your mentor and so people that you can call and let them know how you're doing, what your plan is, and what's your exit plan if things get a little dicey. And that helped me to navigate and maneuver through work situations where there was alcohol involved. And also be prepared to answer any questions around why I'm not drinking. And I really wouldn't elaborate. I would just say, I am just allergic to alcohol. And I would leave it at that. And most people would be like, oh, okay. And we'd start backing away. But it was like, that was all I needed to say. It's just not something that I do much anymore at all. And then the other thing is I had to be careful about replacing my alcohol addiction with work addiction. And I had to be really careful about, and it can still be, as it can still be a challenge for me because I love my work. And yet at the same time, I can work alcoholically. And I have to make sure I let folks know, oh, geez, what's my motivation for working as much as I'm working? Is it because I'm truly busy or because I'm trying to hide something and I don't want to feel something? And so swapping addictions isn't helpful either. And I did that for a while and I'm recovering workaholic and I've had to look at my motivations behind that. And just, they were the exact same motivations I had behind drinking. So I didn't want to feel, I wanted to hide. I didn't feel I was good enough. I needed to fill myself up. And none of it worked. Work doesn't work either. Now, work has its place in my recovery landscape. And it's a ministry. It can be where you're working with people and you're the person they may go to for some challenges that they're having, whatever that might be. We're capable of taking that in and sitting with people when they're not doing well, whether it's work or otherwise. But definitely have a plan around any kind of a work event because it does help to sort of build a safety net. It did for me. And also watching the workaholism. For me, I had to really keep an eye on it and not let it get in the way of my recovery, meetings, and other tools that I need to use as medicine. This is a disease, and I need to take my medicine. My work isn't my medicine. It's not. Relationships aren't my medicine. It's my higher power. It's you. It's my community. It's meetings. It's this blueprint for life. And that I didn't even know was possible. And wow. If I had written my own script, how limiting it would have been. I really let God really take charge. And it's opened up, as you mentioned, opportunities I could not have thought of myself.
I think what I would say is for the wisdom from this conversation, just Heather's wisdom is as you're in early sobriety, just keep talking, keep looking at whether or not the workspace is safe and moves you towards recovery or if it moves you away from recovery. And oftentimes what I've seen, and especially in early recovery, all of a sudden people are starting to they don't get along with their coworker because their coworker reminds them of their sister, that, or the boss reminds them of their father. I mean, there's this remake of the dysfunctional family of origin that can play out in the workspace. So there are a lot of things to look for. But the most important thing is if you stay awake and you just one step in front of the other, one day at a time, and you continue to communicate and have connection with safe people who can help guide you as to if this is safely supporting your sobriety or not. And that's when we have to kind of look at it and go, this is not helpful. This is not helping me. And I am going to tell you, there's been times, I can't remember I think I took a job at somewhere. I can't remember what anyway, all I'll say is that listening to coworkers speak around me, hearing them speak, swearing, I'm not people can swear, but this, it's like bar talk. I'm going to call it bar talk. Just that would trigger me so much. What how drunk they got over the weekend, or they're going to go and get a bottle after work. And I mean, and just being around that, even though you might be in like a professional job, hearing that
Mm-hmm.
is not helpful.
Mm-mm.
So keep awake, really think about how you want your body, your breath and mind to be safe every minute of the day. And what control can you have over that? And what can you do to make sure that happens? And sometimes we got to stay in jobs until we find another job that supports us better, but keep talking, keep sharing, and keep focusing that when we're sober, it's not the end of, I think it's the beginning of really doing the work that we're meant to be doing. And I had no idea that I would be where I'm at today doing this kind of work of service to people. I just had no idea. And so just don't give up before the miracle happens.
Exactly. Imagine all the people you've touched, right? And exponentially how many people they've touched. And it goes out and out. And it's like, we'll never know how many people were affected by a kind word or a smile or taking the time with someone. And that happens and needs to happen in the workplace, for sure. Phil, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Recovery, the Whole Enchilada. And if you connected with today's episode, please share it and like it, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Your feedback does help Heather and I to shape future conversations. And next time, I believe we're going to talk a little bit more about the decisions that we make and the focus that, what do we focus on and what decisions are made as a result of that focus. And I'll be able to articulate it a little bit better when we get together again, but I think that would be a fun topic. So we love you, and remember that your recovery story, with all its flavors and textures and complexities, matter deeply. Until next time, stay strong and keep growing.
Yeah.
See ya.